Hello and welcome back, everyone. I hope you are doing great and you're quite happy and satisfied with the way things are in your life at this point in time. So, today we meet again to discuss another interesting topic that could be of great significance, especially if you are in the corporate world. So, what are we going to talk about? Well, there is an exercise that is conducted in the corporate world either once a year or twice a year or sometimes more, depending on the organization, which is called performance appraiser. Yeah, now that rings a bell, isn't it? So performance appraisal is something that all of us in the corporate world are aware about, and it is a regular exercise. Now, this talk is especially for those who either conduct performance appraisals or are likely to be part of one, especially if you are someone who conducts performance appraisal, which could mean you could be from the human resources team, you could be from any other team, but you do conduct performance appraisal for the people in your team. So if you're responsible for that, then this is going to be of great help for you. So we are going to talk about what are some of the biases that people who conduct performance appraisal are likely to suffer from, and how do we address those biases. So I'm going to talk to you specifically about three biases today, and what can we do about it? How do we address these biases as well? So here we go. The first bias that a lot of people who conduct performance appraisal is called the halo effect. Now, what is the halo effect? Now, let's assume that you're conducting a performance appraisal from one of your team members. And this team member, in the first impression that you had about this person, performed really well, exceptionally well. You gave him or her an assignment, and the person did a remarkable job. Well, that's great, isn't it? Now, what happens because of one of these impressions is that you start looking at this person as promising in the context of everything that you offer this person. For example, you would like to believe that this person is so good that he or she can deliver results in any kind of assignment, which may or may not be true. Or sometimes the halo effect takes place when you get impressed by one dimension of the personality and you use that as a precursor to all other aspects of the personality. Let me give you an example. Suppose someone is good looking or someone has got a good physique and someone looks very smart, then you would like to believe that this person who looks good has to be intelligent as well and will be a top performer, which again may not be true, because sometimes the way people look and the way people perform are absolutely different. So the halo effect creates a bias because you start looking at one dimension of a person and you apply that to all other areas of his or her life. Okay, so that is what the halo effect is all about. And this is something which a lot of people, while conducting performance appraisals, suffer from. They look at one part of a person, good, and then they think, oh, this person has to be good at other things as well. But that may not be true. Sometimes you could suffer from early impressions, which might be promising, but the remainder of the story might be absolutely different. So watch out for the halo effect. Don't get too impressed by someone in their first impressions, or don't let yourself get blinded by one dimension of a personality and create results which are not really that great. So that's the halo effect for you. The second bias that a lot of people suffer from is called as the horn effect. Now, what is the horn effect? Horn is in complete contradiction to the halo effect. So if halo effect looks at one good thing and that impacts everything else, the horn is completely contradictory. One bad thing or one weakness of a person is assumed to be the overall weakness of a person. So for example, if a particular person is not good at decision making, then you believe that this person can never ever become a leader. But perhaps he or she might be good at people management, might be good at delegation, might be good at presentation skills, communication. But just one aspect of the personality is not good, which for you is important. And therefore you conclude that this person is good for nothing. Yeah. Or sometimes the first impressions are negative. Suppose you conducted an interview and the person came across as being very weak, very timid, or lacked confidence, then you might feel that, oh, this person is not cut for the corporate world, right? So all of these are examples of the horn effect, where you label a person based on one negative characteristic or maybe a deficiency that you have encountered in that person, and you tend to believe that everything that this person does is not going to be good enough for me. Okay, so that's called the horn effect. So the halo and horn effect are completely in contradiction to each other, but both are equally bad. Now, the next bias, which a lot of performance appraisal leaders suffer from is called as the recency effect. Now, what is the recency effect? This is especially very interesting because the recency effect says that anything that a person has done in the recent past has an impact on how you perceive that individual. So let's say, for example, a person has not been performing for the past 3 quarters, but the last quarter has been phenomenal performance. Now, immediately, what you tend to believe is, this person is a great performer because look at the past quarter, the records speak for themselves. But what you also got to look at is the previous 3 quarters where the performance was below average, perhaps. So anything that happens in the recent past tends to have an impact on how you perceive an individual. And it could also happen the other way. For example, the first 3 quarters could have been absolutely brilliant, but the last quarter wasn't that promising. And therefore, you might believe or you might conclude that, yeah, the performance is slipping, perhaps there is lack of motivation and stuff like that. So recency effect is something which impacts all human beings. What has happened in the immediate past has a grip on how you perceive an individual or perhaps a group of individuals. So those are the 3 biases. Are there other biases as well? Absolutely. But these are the critical ones, and therefore we got to be cognizant of them. Which are these again? The first one is halo effect, where one good thing impacts everything that the person does. The horn effect, where one bad thing or weakness of a person is perceived to be impacting every other quality that he or she possesses. And lastly, there is a recency effect. Anything that has happened in the recent past either might create a positive impression or a negative impression about an individual. Now, all of these are biases. Okay, so what do we do about them? How do we overcome these biases? Well, the first welcome step is you got to understand and believe that we are all biased. Human beings are biased by nature. It's hard to accept that as a fact, but we are all biased. We all have our own biases, period. Okay, so what do we do to counter these biases, especially in the context of a performance appraisal, which could be the make or break of a person's career in an organization? So 3 predominant things that you could do to avoid or to reduce the impact of these biases. Number 1, be objective and use data. Now, data is a great tool for any leader. So whenever you make a decision or you look at some individual, don't just look at what he or she has been talking about. Look at the performance on the paper, the black and white. I think that gives you clarity about what the performance has been over the past 1 year or 6 months or 3 months, whatever it might be. Sometimes it's good to look at the last couple of years, if need be, to ascertain the performance of an individual. So data is something which is absolutely quintessential for you to reduce the quantum of bias that you hold as a performance appraiser, right? The second thing you can do is, because we are all likely to be judgmental and we all have our biases, ask for other people's opinion as well. So let's say, for example, you're a team leader and you're conducting interview or performance appraisal with one team member. Also ask other team members, what do they feel about this individual? Okay, they may not be completely right, but at least we'll get to know what kind of thought process do other people have about this individual. And what is your thought process? There could be some insights that you might be able to drive through that. So don't just be dependent on your own judgments. Also look for judgment from other people. Sometimes you could ask this question to clients, sometimes to other colleagues from other department who might be in touch with this individual. So use your own resources in the organization or outside the organization to get a fair perspective about the individual for whom you're conducting the appraisal. And then last but not the least, very important, during the course of the performance appraisal discussions, it's important that you ask open-ended questions and thereafter you listen with an open mind. Often because our minds are closed, we have already made up our mind that this person is great, this person is worst. We do not ask enough questions and we give someone a rating which is purely based on our biases, our judgments. Now, in order to avoid that, a sensible thing to do is to ask relevant questions and then back it up with some good, solid, empathetic listening. So those 3 things will keep you in good stead. Use data objectively, take opinion from others, and of course, question and then listen. If you do these 3 things, you might not be able to completely eliminate biases, but you'll definitely be able to enhance your sensitivity towards the performance appraisal process. It will be less biased and more objective in nature, and that's what you intend for. So go out there and use this in your next performance appraisal and see how it works for you. I'm sure it will give you some great results, which you can practice over and over again. So I'll see you again sometime very soon. Till that time, take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.